Hello folks, you're listening to Conversation Oasis, coming to you from Kasviskeidas, from the city center. I am Ville, and with me today we have Eero, Ronja, Jalal, owner of the place, and Jonas. And Jonas will next explain our topic today. How it is, Jonas?
So I was invited here by Jalal to the radio, and once we were in the Night of the Arts in Turku, we were having good discussion at the honorary consulate of Estonia by a great cake buffet.
That was a nice buffet.
It was a great buffet. Yes. €2 and you could eat as much as you like about cake. Yes.
And very nice people in there.
Yeah.
Definitely. We had a good discussion with them.
So there we would discuss the differences between Finnish and Iranian culture, or Middle Eastern in general. So I said that, but I thought that there would be something to learn from the Middle Eastern culture, in particular in relation to the caring about your close ones or your neighbor or something like this. But then Jalal would comment that in his opinion the culture there was such that if you help somebody out, you actually do it so that the other one will be indebted to you, and so it's not like you are expecting a favor back, basically.
Like this.
May I just add something
Yes.
here? I believe it's not just Middle Eastern culture. I think is in a collective culture, it requires that people help each other because they are they are depending on each other in a collective culture. So once you help somebody, it's not just help, you want to do something human, it's a trade. You do something for somebody that to get something in return. This is what I believe. I don't know. So.
Yeah. Okay, and then you, Jalal, mentioned that an interesting point, that in Finland it would be different. You thought that in Finland people would help without expectation for a favor back.
Yeah, this is what I experienced.
Yes, and this was something that reminded me of the Pericles speech, and so I was thinking of I will read the speech here.
But can I ask who is Pericles?
Yes, I will give you a short intro here. So Pericles is from ancient Greece, 400 before birth of Christ, and during the Peloponnesian War, where Athens fought against Sparta, after the first casualties, there was a funeral held for the casualties of the first clashes in Athens. And here, as was custom in ancient Athens, there's some person chosen amidst the crowd who is kind of talented in words and wise person, smart. And so Pericles was chosen for this occasion to speak for all of Athens during this funeral occasion. And what Jalal said reminded me of this speech, because in this speech I remembered that Pericles said something very close to that about ancient Athens, and something that was left in my mind because I felt it was a very beautiful thing. So then when Jalal said this about Finland, I was like, wow, very interesting.
And this is good that you're mentioning that now, because probably most of Nordic people are doing this because it's just a culture and they are not conscious about it. And while you're now mentioning this, they become conscious that what a good culture, what good value they have in here.
Exactly.
Often they think that people from South are very kind, I don't want to say anything against of that, but helping each other with no expectations is the best, not just expecting something.
And now when I read the speech again yesterday, I noticed there was surprisingly so many similarities between the Finnish nation and culture and ancient Athens. And it was interesting that, as will become clear in the speech, Pericles saw that the ancient Athens was looked up at by the contemporary people, and he also was expecting that the future people will look up to it as well, and which we see is true. Today, in the elementary school, they teach us that the ancient Athens or ancient Greece was the cradle of the Western civilization.
That's true.
And so it's very interesting to read this great text, by the way, which is also in its way of putting the things into words. I think it's outstanding. I haven't perhaps ever read anything like this before.
We are ready to listen.
Yes.
Do people here have any comments before we let Jonas read the Pericles speech in its
Rania?
total?
No, I'm just excited to hear. Maybe afterwards I can comment on it.
Yeah. So what I had in mind that we could, after the speech, if we still have time, we could perhaps talk about the differences between the Finnish and the ancient Greek culture, and I also had in mind already something that we are then lacking, which they had.
All right, so people, you're listening to Radio Robin Hood. I'm Ville. I have here with me Eero, Ronja, Jalal, and Jonas, who will now present the Pericles speech from, what was it, 400 BC?
400 before birth of Christ.
Yes.
So 2,400 years ago.
All right.
And just as a reference, this excerpt is from Thukydides' history book. Okay. And Thukydides is famous for him trying to capture the factual things as they were, contrary to the contemporary culture of telling tales and fantasies. So he was trying to capture the facts as they were. So in this sense, it's also very interesting. Now, at the burial of those who were the first to fall in the war, Pericles, the son of Xanthippus, was chosen to make the speech. When the moment arrived, he came forward from the tomb and, standing on a high platform so that he might be heard by as many people as possible in the crowd, he spoke as follows. Many of those who have spoken here in the past have praised the institution of this speech at the close of our ceremony. It seemed to them a mark of honor to our soldiers who have fallen in war that a speech should be made over them. I do not agree. These men have shown themselves valiant in action, and it would be enough, I think, for their glories to be proclaimed in action, as you have just seen it done at this funeral organized by the state. Our belief in the courage and manliness of so many should not be hazarded on the goodness of or badness of one man's speech. Then it is not easy to speak with a proper sense of balance when a man's listeners find it difficult to believe in the truth of what one is saying. The man who knows the facts and loves the dead may well think that an oration or speech tells less than what he knows and what he would like to hear. Others who do not know so much may feel envy for the dead and think the orator overpraises them when he speaks of exploits that are beyond their own capacities. Praise of other people is tolerable only up to a certain point, the point where one still believes that one could do oneself some of the things one is hearing about. Once you get beyond this point, you will find people becoming jealous and incredulous. However, the fact is that this institution was set up and approved by our forefathers, and it is my duty to follow the tradition and do my best to meet the wishes and expectations of every one of you. I shall begin by speaking about our ancestors, since it is only right and proper on such an occasion to pay them the honor of recalling what they did. In this land of ours, there have always been the same people living from generation to generation up till now, and they, by their courage and their virtues, have handed it on to us a free country. They certainly deserve our praise. Even more, so do our fathers deserve it. For to the inheritance they had received, they added all the empire we have now, and it was not without blood and toil that they handed it down to us of the present generation. And then we ourselves, assembled here today, who are mostly in the prime of life, have in most directions added to the power of our empire and have organized our state in such a way that it is perfectly well able to look after itself both in peace and in war. I have no wish to make a long speech on subjects familiar to you all, so I shall say nothing about the warlike deeds by which we acquired our power, or the battles in which we or our fathers gallantly resisted our enemies, Greek or foreign. What I want to do is, in the first place, to discuss the spirit in which we faced our trials, and also our constitution and the way of life which has made us great. After that, I shall speak in praise of the dead, believing that this kind of speech is not inappropriate to the present occasion, and that this whole assembly of citizens and foreigners may listen to it with advantage. Let me say that our system of government does not copy the institutions of our neighbors. It is more the case of our being a model to others than of our imitating anyone else. Our constitution is called a democracy because power is in the hands not of a minority, but of the whole people. When it is a question of settling private disputes, everyone is equal before the law. When it is a question of putting one person before another in positions of public responsibility, what counts is not membership of a particular class, but the actual ability which the man possesses. No one, so long as he has it in him to be of service to the state, is kept in political obscurity because of poverty. And just as our political life is free and open, so is our day-to-day life in our relations with each other. We do not get into a state with our next-door neighbor if he enjoys himself in his own way, nor do we give him the kind of black looks which, though they do not do real harm, still do hurt people's feelings. We are free and tolerant in our private lives, but in public affairs we keep to the law. This is because it commands our deep respect. We give our obedience to those whom we put in positions of authority, and we obey the laws themselves, especially those which are for the protection of the oppressed, and those unwritten laws which it is an acknowledged shame to break. And here is another point. When our work is over, we are in a position to enjoy all kinds of recreation for our spirits. There are various kinds of contests and sacrifices regularly throughout the year. In our homes we find a beauty and a good taste which delight us every day and which drive away our cares and concerns. Then the greatness of our city brings it about that all the good things from all over the world flow into us, so that to us it seems just as natural to enjoy foreign goods as our own local products. Then there is a great difference between us and our opponents in our attitude towards military service. Here are some examples. Our city is open to the world, and we have no periodical deportations in order to prevent people observing or finding out secrets which might be of military advantage to the enemy. This is because we rely not on secret weapons, but on our own real courage and loyalty. There is a difference too in our educational system. The Spartans, from their earliest boyhood, are submitted to the most laborious training in courage. We pass our lives without all these restrictions, and yet are just as ready to face the same dangers as they are. Here is a proof of this. When the Spartans invade our land, they do not come by themselves, but bring all their allies with them. Whereas we, when we launch an attack abroad, do the job by ourselves, and though fighting on foreign soil, do not often fail to defeat opponents who are fighting for their own hearts and homes. As a matter of fact, none of our enemies has ever yet been confronted with our total strength, because we have to divide our attention between our navy and the many missions on which our troops are sent on land. Yet, if our enemies engage a detachment of our forces and defeat it, they give themselves credit for having thrown back our entire army. Or if they lose, they claim that they were beaten by us in full strength. There are certain advantages, I think, in our way of meeting danger voluntarily, with an easy mind, instead of with a laborious training, with natural rather than with state-induced courage. We do not have to spend our time practicing to meet sufferings which are still in the future, and when they are actually upon us, we show ourselves just as brave as these others who are always in strict training. This is one point in which I think our city deserves to be admired. There are also others. Our love of what is beautiful does not lead to extravagance. Our love of the things of the mind does not make us soft. We regard wealth as something to be properly used, rather than as something to boast about. As for poverty, no one needs to be ashamed to admit it. The real shame is in not taking practical measures to escape from it. Here each individual is interested not only in his own affairs, but in the affairs of the state as well. Even those who are mostly occupied with their own business are extremely well informed on general politics. This is a peculiarity of ours. We do not say that a man who takes no interest in politics is a man who minds his own business. We say that he has no business here at all. We Athenians, in our own persons, take our decisions on policy or submit them to proper discussions. For we do not think that there is an incompatibility between words and deeds. The worst thing is to rush into action before the consequences have been properly debated. And this is another point where we differ from other people. We are capable at the same time of taking risks and of estimating them beforehand. Others are brave out of ignorance, and when they stop to think, they begin to fear. But the man who can most truly be accounted brave is he who best knows the meaning of what is sweet in life and of what is terrible, and then goes out undeterred to meet what is to come. Again, In questions of general good feeling, there is a great contrast between us and most other people. We make friends by doing good to others, not by receiving good from them. This makes our friendship all the more reliable, since we want to keep alive the gratitude of those who are in our debt by showing continued goodwill to them. Whereas the feelings of one who owes us something lack the same enthusiasm, since he knows that when he repays our kindness, it will be more like paying back a debt than giving something spontaneously. We are unique in this. When we do kindnesses to others, we do not do them out of any calculations of profit or loss. We do them without afterthought, relying on our free liberality. Taking everything together then, I declare that our city is an education to Greece. And I declare that in my opinion, each single one of our citizens in all the manifold aspects of life is able to show himself the rightful lord and owner of his own person, and do this, moreover, with exceptional grace and exceptional versatility. And to show that this is no empty boasting for the present occasion, but real tangible fact, you have only to consider the power which our city possesses, and which has been won by those very qualities which I have mentioned. Athens, alone of the states we know, comes to her testing time in a greatness that surpasses what was imagined of her. In her case, and in her case alone, no invading enemy is ashamed at being defeated, and no subject can complain of being governed by people unfit for their responsibilities. Mighty indeed are the marks and monuments of our empire which we have left. Future ages will wonder at us as the present age wonders at us now. We do not need the praises of a Homer, or of anyone else whose words may delight us for the moment, but whose estimation of facts will fall short of what is really true. For our adventurous spirit has forced an entry into every sea and into every land, and everywhere we have left behind us everlasting memorials of good done to our friends or suffering inflicted on our enemies. This then is the kind of city for which these men who could not bear the thought of losing her nobly fought and nobly died. It is only natural that every one of us who survived them should be willing to undergo hardships in her service. And it was for this reason that I have spoken at such length about our city, because I wanted to make clear that for us there is more at stake than there is for others who lack our advantages. Also, I wanted my words of praise for the dead to be set in the bright light of evidence. And now the most important of these words has been spoken. I have sung the praises of our city, but it was the courage and gallantry of these men and of people like them which made her splendid. Nor would you find it true in the case of many of the Greeks, as it is true of them, that no words can do more than justice to their deeds. Now there would be 2 pages more in praise of those fighting. It also contains some ideas about the exceptionalities and so forth, with an interesting point in the last chapter about the women, but perhaps I can mention just the thing about the women and jump the others.
This is really great. Do you have an account in Twitter?
Oh, sorry?
In Twitter. Do you have an account?
Twitter?
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Can I ask to send a copy of this for Trump?
Oh.
If I might say here, we just
That would help him a lot. It fixes a lot of problems we have.
if I can say a couple of words for our listeners, we just heard a speech by Pericles.
A part of it.
A part of it. Not entirely.
Yes.
A couple of pages are still.
Yes.
Pages are still there.
Yeah.
And you're listening to Radio Robin Hood. This is Conversation Oasis coming to you from Kasviskeidas, in the center of Turku. And I'm Ville, and with me I have here Eero, Ronja, Jalal, and Jonas, who just almost entirely told us the speech of Pericles from 400 years before Christ. That was amazing, and we have still 5 minutes remaining. So I'm
I
considering.
would love to hear about women.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's let Jonas
So
finish.
I'll jump. Also, do you want me to read all the last 2 pages,
It's
or
not possible
just
in
the?
this
Yes.
5 minutes.
So I'll just read the part of the women.
Yeah.
Yes.
So after he praises the soldiers and some other such things about Athens, which is also very interesting, but then I'll jump to the first part where he talks about women, and this is, I think, an interesting point of difference, because so far when I read the speech I thought about that this of course touches all the people, not
All the
differentiating. Yes, not differentiating between men and women. But only in the short last chapter or paragraph I found that it was not about the women so far.
No, of course not. We're not a part
Yes.
of politics.
Exactly, and it gets worse.
Okay.
So
Let's hear it.
he has 3 sentences for the women,
Yeah.
and they are as follows. Perhaps I should say a word or two on the duties of women to those among you who are now widowed. I can say all I have to say in a short word of advice. Your great glory is not to be inferior to what God has made you, and the greatest glory of a woman is to be least talked about by men, whether they are praising you or criticizing you. I have now, as the law demanded, said what I had to say.
It's very much religious view of a woman.
What's the second sentence?
No, that was it. That
was it.
That was it. That was all about
Oh,
women.
yeah.
There's 4 more sentences, but that's not about the women.
So
Yeah.
basically, he said what the law made him say, and that's it, or something.
So I think the what the law, the mention about what law demanded, I believe, was about the whole of speech, not about the women.
Oh.
Yeah.
So here I'm misguided, but I just wanted to kind of bring in the contrast there, that these 3 sentences were all he had to say, and then he finishes.
Yeah.
And then he's like, and this is the speech.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, but I have to say that there were a lot of similarities to our current
Indeed, no?
culture.
There is just one thing I think we disagree on it. He was talking a lot about enemy. We don't have enemy now. We don't believe in having enemy.
Yeah, that's true.
We are all people, and some people are not sharing the same picture that we see. It's just that.
Yeah.
And if they don't see what we see, it's our fault that we are not active enough to show them what we see.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the parts where he speaks about the Spartans, they're full of that kind of us and the others rhetorics.
Yeah.
That something that should be very critical about.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And also this part was pretty harsh for my ear, at least, where he says that, for our adventurous spirit has forced an entry into every sea and into every land, and everywhere we have left behind us everlasting memorials of good done to our friends, or suffering inflicted onto our enemies.
Yeah, that's
pretty
Yeah.
pretty hard.
contradiction.
It's like, yes, we conquer other lands, and we make our enemies suffer.
Still, it was a great speech for that time.
Yeah, it's amazing speech.
And a
2004.
politician,
Yes.
if our politicians speak this way, I'm very satisfied.
Yeah.
Exactly. You listen to the Eduskunta parliament. It's like nobody gives a shit. Because it's so boring.
Yeah, I think
uninspiring.
Yeah, I think we have to continue another time because our time is full. But thank you, Jonas, for giving us enlightenment to the speech of Pericles from 2,400 years ago. This is a lot to think of.
Yes, thank you for allowing me to spread because I was very inspired and enthusiastic by the text. So thanks for giving the possibility to spread, hopefully, the joy of it.
The possibility is always here. It's up to you to join.
Yeah, and maybe we can still have a talk of this next time.
Exactly.
Possibly.
Some future time, some specific topics in this.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I would love to say about
Exactly.
it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Thank you, everyone. This was a conversation Oasis coming to you from Kasviskeidas city center. At city center, and I'm Ville, and I had here today Eero, Ronja, Jalal, and Jonas. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.